Welcome to Clips, where we snip out little facts and factoids from our much more in-depth series. One of our shows actually focuses on hand traps, otherwise known as clay throwers. We use them to fling biodegradable discs, usually into the air. And the expectation is that you then shoot at the discs in order to improve or test your skills with a shotgun. But today's question is actually, why do we call them traps? I mean, we get the hand part. We're used to a trap being a means of catching an animal, and way back in their origin, these devices were very similar in nature. Originally, the only test for a shotgun was shooting at live birds, initially in the wild, but as humans usually do, we attempted to even up the playing field in order to create a competitive sport. The result was live pigeon shooting, in which pre-captured birds were released in a controlled way, allowing for shooters and observers to avoid beating around the bush, literally. Now, I happen to, and you'll be surprised because I've hidden it so well, have a fairly common early pigeon holder or device, right here. And since it held the bird trapped inside, it was called a trap. Let's get a look at it. Now, this is a fairly simple device. We have a vertical board with a hinge spring pushing forward on it. It looks like a homemade job, although very well made. And then we have a string with a latch attached to this, and then a fair bit of length for that, so that we can get far away behind the shooter and pull the rope at the right moment. When we pull it, and I'm going to brace this for a second, the board comes back. As the board comes back, we'll see there's a couple nails sticking out. Those two nails stick into the back wall of the two halves of the trap, which is now fully open, and we would have had a bird stuck about here. With it open, the bird would hopefully fly out. If it didn't fly right away, we have a secondary function, which is that when we release the string, it's going to spring forward. Ooh, and that is a very loud noise, and we got a jingle bell that will scare the bird into flight. So actually a fair number of things are happening all at once. I'll also point out that this device is rather ingeniously designed to be able to be staked into the ground so that it doesn't get knocked around. So let me turn it sideways for you so you can see that this is probably a little easier to see on this end. They've gone ahead and put some steel flashing over this, nailed it down. That way you can stake it without damaging the wood. And you rip it right back up again without damaging the wood. Same on the front big toe area, lots of room to work to get this bolted into the ground. And otherwise, a lovely piece of old American craftsmanship. Again, designed specifically to contain and then release a bird, startling it into the air if necessary. There were, of course, a myriad of other designs, but this gets the point across just fine. Now, for most people, there is a clear difference between hunting and this form of live animal sport shooting. Almost immediately, the sport was prone to complaints by people unhappy with what they saw as inhumane activity. However, the actual shooting was very fun and intended to draw a crowd, so alternatives were sought out. The first major device was the glass ball, which proved to be a bit of a mess to clean up and certainly not ideal. It also tended to have a very predictable flight path, making the game nowhere near as challenging as a live bird. Eventually, the clay disc would be introduced, and very quickly it standardized on the size and shape that we're used to today. The broad majority of early clay traps still work with modern clay pigeons, which is why we've been able to do our little series, so give it a look sometime if you'd like to see some of those devices. But at least you now know why we call them traps. Have a good one.